What up, what up, what up, man? This is your man Dre Day, Sportsway with Dre Day podcast, the Hood's ESPN, Crystal Street's very own. Listen, I know I don't really do videos like that, but I felt the need to do one right now. I had to do one. Y'all had to see the face with this. Y'all had to. You know, I dropped a new episode on Sportsway with Dre Day podcast yesterday, but it's audio. I needed to show the face for this one. You understand what I'm saying? It's a big thing going on right now in sports. And it was the lovely Monica McNutt basically chewing Stephen A. up on First Take. Now, some people will sit here and say, oh, she didn't chew him up. She didn't chew him up. In my actual opinion, I believe that she did. Just because of his reaction afterwards. Now, I get that he went on his show, the Stephen A. Smith show, you know, sometime later yesterday, and I seen the video late last night, and he basically spoke about the situation that happened with him and Monica McNutt. And basically what she said was, and this is how it all started. He basically said that how who's been talking about women's basketball more than First Take. She said, respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to. And that opened the floodgates because what she said was the absolute truth. This is someone who has a love-hate relationship with Stephen A. There's some things he do that I agree. Well, there's certain things that he say I agree with. There's certain things that he say that I don't agree with. I look to him as an OG. I look to him as a mentor in this media space. He's one of the reasons on why I started a podcast to begin with. Because growing up in the hood, all I did was talk sports with my niggas. And they always say, yo, D, yo, you need to do a show. Yo, you the hood's ESPN. So I look to him as a mentor. You understand what I'm saying? But we got to call a spade a spade. He was not talking about the WNBA like this 3 years ago. He's just now jumping on this train. He's now sitting in that seat enjoying the ride of the WNBA because he wasn't doing this 3 years ago. And that was the point that Monica McNutt was making. Now, he went on his show and did this soliloquy. Now, yeah, I'm going to use his word. And talked about the diversity that happens on First Take. He mentioned Monica McNutt. He mentioned Andrea Carter. He mentioned Shanae Wumake. He mentioned Kimberly Martin. He mentioned Mia Kimes. He even mentioned Molly. He's talking about all these women that have been on First Take. What does that have to do with what she said? What she said was, you haven't been talking about the WNBA like this. You wasn't talking about the WNBA like this 3 years ago. Now, he then went on and said, oh, he didn't speak about it because it was nothing, it wasn't worth talking about. Well, see, I have to counter that because you're now listening to someone and seeing someone who's been watching the WNBA for quite some time. I have been watching the WNBA since its existence, which was 1997, okay? In 2021, I'm keeping this in 3 years because that's what she said. She said 3 years ago, with your platform, you could have been talking about the WNBA if you wanted to. So I just want to keep it for 3 years. That would be 2021. A lot happened in 2021. May I count the ways? 2021 was the 25th anniversary of the WNBA. You don't think that that was something to brag about? You don't think that was something to report on First Take? I tell you who did speak about it, yours truly. On my podcast, Sportsway with Dre Day podcast, episode 200. Me and a couple of my guys, shout out to my man Sam the Archer, shout out to my man K-Sap. Shout out to my man Sean and shout out to my man Javon from Everybody Loves Sports. We took the liberty and did a mock fantasy draft, all-time WNBA draft, where we took all the greats and put them in a draft, and we became GMs, and we picked our great WNBA team. They could have did something like that. Hell, Fox Sports could have did something like that. TNT, NBA TV, all these motherfuckers could have did something about that. But they didn't. It took a little independent podcaster like myself to do this and give homage and give the WNBA their flowers. Something that they could have done. They could have had Cynthia Cooper come on First Take. They could have had Lisa Leslie, Maya Moore, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, Tina Thompson, Cheryl Swoops, Lauren Jackson. The list goes on. That's how many greats have come out of the WNBA. They could have did this 3 years ago. But they didn't. But you want to sit here and say nothing was happening 3 years ago. Yes, it was. Do you also know that in 2021, Candace Parker went home? She did the LeBron. Remember when LeBron went back to Cleveland? And they were so hype about that shit? They spent a whole fucking show talking about that shit. About him going back home. Candace Parker did the same thing. She went back home to Chicago. I mean, she went to Naperville Central High, not that far from Chicago, but she is from that area. Why y'all didn't cover a story on that? And when I say cover a story, I'm not talking about no 10, 15 seconds. That ain't shit. That's like saying, yo, I'll be on the block. But then I just walk on the block and that's it. I didn't sit on the steps. I didn't have a drink. I didn't have a smoke. Nah. I just walked past the block and then turned the corner and then said, oh yeah, I'll be on the block. That's what they do on ESPN First Take. They call it a quick take, where they'll talk about something WNBA related and they'll only talk about that shit for 10 to 15 seconds, probably 20 to max, and I'm being nice. That's not talking about the WNBA. That's not talking about it. Candace Parker and the Chicago Sky went against Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA Finals that year. Y'all could have talked about that. That series ended in 4 games. 4 games it ended in. And not one day on First Take did they take a segment and break down the game. But yet, you mentioned Shania Wumake. You mentioned Andrea Carter. You mentioned Monica McNutt. Why wasn't none of these women on First Take? Why couldn't you bring them up and talk about the WNBA back then? But you want to do it now because the gravy train with Caitlin Clark. And listen, I admit she is the cash cow right now. We all know that. But I'm just trying to keep this where she said. Monica McNutt said 3 years ago. Those were the things that happened 3 years ago in the WNBA, and nobody was talking about it. And when I say nobody, I'm talking about motherfuckers that's on these TV shows that get paid all this money and wasn't talking about it. Sports is sports. Basketball is basketball. And none of them was talking about this shit. Even after 2021, they wasn't talking about the WNBA. May I count the ways? In 2022, the closest thing they talked about on ESPN First Take when it came to WNBA was when Brittany Griner got detained in Russia. That was the only time they talked about the WNBA. There's a whole season in the WNBA. They wasn't talking about it. And if they did, they only did it for 10 to 20 seconds. That shit don't count to me. It don't count to me. But see, now we in 2024, and now everybody want to jump on the train of the WNBA. First of all, I'm happy that it's being talked about the way it is. as an advocate WNBA fan, again, I've been watching this since its existence. I'm happy that it's being talked about the way it is now. But it also should have been talked about like this back then as well. I'm grateful that it's being talked about now. Believe me, I am. But this could have been talked about 3 years ago. And it's just like Monica McNutt said, if you wanted to, on your platform, and with you being the head honcho at ESPN, you could have really brought awareness to the WNBA had you spent more time talking about it. But you weren't. But now you jumped on the train. Now you jumped on the bandwagon. And that's the point that she was trying to make. And he wanted to throw diversity in the conversation, trying to change the narrative. That didn't have shit to do with what she said. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But, listen, I just want to speak on that real quick. I'm hungry. I got to make me some breakfast before I get ready for work. I just had to speak on that real quick. I had to just voice my opinion when it comes to this shit. Because it's a passion of mine. I love basketball. I love women's basketball. I love the direction that it's going in right now. But, listen, it's like what Angel Reese said. It's not just one player. It's a bunch of us. And what they have done on, and listen, and it ain't just ESPN, it's Fox Sports as well. You got Get Up. You got First Take. You got Speak. You got First Things First. You got Undisputed. That's 5 shows I just mentioned. They don't talk about the WNBA like that. And when they do, it only coincides with what Caitlin Clark is doing. The Connecticut Sun right now are undefeated. Undefeated. Ain't nobody talking about it. Asia Wilson is on a killing spree to start this young season. Averaging close to 30 and getting 12 to 13 rebounds a game, and all her games so far this season, probably except for one game, ain't nobody really talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. Everything revolves around Caitlin Clark, and I think I speak for everyone else. As far as real WNBA fans, not the ones that just jumped on the bandwagon because of one player. We're tired of it. If you're going to speak on the WNBA, speak on all of it. Don't just speak on Caitlin Clark. There's other things to speak about as well. I get that she's the cash cow, and I love Caitlin Clark. I am an advocate supporter of Caitlin Clark. I'm team Caitlin Clark. But don't get it fucked up. There's other things within the WNBA that deserves its praise, that deserves to be talked about. Real simple and plain. Real simple and plain. But shout out to Angel Reese. Shout out to this whole rookie class. This whole rookie class. I tried to tell people this rookie class was probably going to be the best class in the history of the W. And it's looking like I'm right so far. Cameron Brink is doing her thing. Alyssa Paley is doing her thing in Minnesota. She just had a big game not too long ago, I believe against Phoenix. Rakia Jackson is doing her thing in LA. I wish Seattle could find a way to put Nika Mule in the game and give her some more time, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's unfortunate that Aaliyah Edwards is with the Mystics and they haven't won yet this season. But I'm loving what I'm seeing so far this season in the W. I am. I truly am. And I wish that these networks, which is Fox Sports and ESPN, I wish they spoke more about the WNBA and then just don't talk about one player. Because it seems like that's what they're doing. They only talk about the WNBA as it pertains to Caitlin Clark. There's so much more you could talk about. There's so much more. So much more. But listen, that's all I want to speak on. Again, I'm hungry. Your boy got to get his grub before he go to work. This is your man, Dre Day, Sportswear with Dre Day Podcast, the Hood's ESPN, Crystal Street's very own. Listen, my podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Just search the name Sportswear with Dre Day Podcast, and your boy is on there. I just dropped a new episode yesterday. I think it's episode 333, if I'm not mistaken. Give it a listen. Tell me what you think. I'm going to upload this to my YouTube channel, Sportswear with Dre Day Podcast. Hit the subscribe button. There are going to be some future episodes on a consistent basis coming real soon. But I felt the need to really put my face to this episode. Well, to this clip right here. So, again, holla at your boy. Y'all be safe out there. God bless. Peace and love. Your boy is out of here.